fellow Toolboxers. Thank you for joining us for episode 363. Let me double check. Is it really 363? I don't even know where to double check because there's so many of them. But welcome, 363 of the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. A wonderful experience we have sharing different pieces of knowledge and conversations and information and updates with the bar. Today's episode is the interview with Shabnam Lotfi, one of our great colleagues in the Midwest, who we'd had on the show before talking about her practice, but wanted to follow up to see what she's doing. She did a really strong lawsuit against the government, and she's still working that way through. The problem with federal litigation is even if you win, you still got to fight and fight and fight, and it goes on. So she's going to give us an update on what happened there, as well as plans, what's going to happen with the future under the Trump administration. And obviously, lawsuits are happening, how she got into lawsuits. So it's very informative for people, especially those who want to get into litigation in the federal space, which is going to be a booming area. And she's a great resource. She's very helpful. She was helped by a lot of colleagues, and I'm sure she's very helpful for other people as well who want to get into it. But before we get started, I want to give you some office updates. E2 seminar, this February one is coming up in a week, so you're probably not going to. Well, if you're interested, on Thursday, February, let's see, it depends on how fast I get this episode out. February 20th, we're having our next E2 session, 100 investor, like $70,000 investment, change of status, E2 visa, real estate company, very interesting stuff. So we're going to have that there. And then next month, I'm going to do an E2 and a national interest waiver one. So if you're interested in having these sessions where I come for an hour and talk about an actual case, just go through a case, how we did it to get it approved, just hit us up, info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com to let us know. And then once we get enough people in a certain group, we'll plug it and let you know. But the fee is right now is $275 for the session. It'll probably go higher, so get it in quick. Having said that's the first thing. Secondly, the eighth edition of the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox magazine is out. So we got wonderful articles from colleagues that posted about updates in the immigration space. And we're working on number 9 already. That's probably going to come out in a month or two. So I wanted to give a heads up to everybody that these things are happening. Go check out the magazine. Probably the easiest way to find it is go to iltbox.com. That's Immigration Lawyers Toolbox. I got the short URL, IL as in lamb, T, box.com. Click on the magazine link, and not only can you see issue 8, but the previous 7 issues as well. That's a great resource there. I do want to plug number 3, my colleague Ruby Powers. Her book, Power Up Your Practice, the new edition, is coming up for ordering. So definitely, I recommend checking that out. A lot of information for people who either have a practice already or are trying to get into it. A lot of updates on what to think about. It's the newest edition of this kind of stuff that you can get. So I definitely recommend reading that. And I also want to thank the sponsor of this episode of the podcast and the recent issue, the issue number 8, which is Mitratech. Mitratech is, as you all know, one of the leading, INS Zoom, as you may know it, one of the leading providers of form software and more for immigration practitioners. As an immigration lawyer, do you spend more time wrestling with paperwork than actually helping people? Mitratech's INS Zoom isn't just another case management tool. It's the industry leader, trusted by over 1,500 law firms and corporations worldwide. With fully customizable workflows, you can automate those soul-crushing repetitive tasks and focus on what matters, your clients, and maybe taking a lunch break. And get this, they have the largest and most comprehensive immigration forms library available, over 1,300 forms and corresponding digital questionnaires, not to mention 18 plus e-filable forms and counting. The fiscal year 2026 H-1B cap will open on March 7th and run through March 24th, 2025. Check out the Mitratech INS Zoom H-1B registration module, which automates the process from A to Z. I'm sure that's going to be very helpful for those getting hit with the madness of the March season, March madness of H-1B. Mitratech's immigration CMS platform is secure, accessible from any device, and keeps you compliant no matter where you are. So whether you're in the office, at home, or presenting a case from a tropical beach, you're covered. Visit hrc.mitratech.com/toolbox to learn more. That's hrc.mitratech.com/toolbox. Do it. Your clients will thank you. Your sanity will thank you. And thank you so much for them for sponsoring all these episodes and in the magazine. It's a lot of work to do, and their support is really appreciated. But having said that, without further ado, let's get it started. And I got to do a disclaimer. None of the information provided here is intended as individual legal guidance. Please consult with an immigration attorney, but you all know that already. Now let's get it started. Hi, Shabnam. Thank you so much for coming on the show again.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. So, been on the show before, so a lot of viewers may know a little about you, but just to recap for them, could you talk about where your office is and what kind of cases you handle?
Sure. So I live in Madison, Wisconsin. This is the Wisconsin state capital behind me. Lived here for almost 20 years. I've been doing immigration law for 10 years. Time flies.
Yeah.
We are a full service immigration law firm. We do employment cases, asylum, removal, family cases, naturalization, and then the joy is the litigation, which is what we've been doing a lot of lately.
We're going to get into that because obviously you're going to have a busy 4 years ahead if it wasn't busy already. So, I mean, that just jumps into the first thing is how do you run a full service law firm? How difficult is that? You must have like a full staff, or how big is your operations?
We're not big. We're actually, I think, pretty small. There's 6 of us. But everybody here loves the work. We're here because we want to be here. We're very team oriented. Everybody touches every case. Um, and I think that helps with productivity because
Mhm.
there's no office politics. Everybody's supportive. And so you really get to bring out the best in
Yeah.
everything you do in that kind of an environment. But we're always hiring and would love to have more help.
2 or 3 attorneys.
3 attorneys total, and then 2 paralegals and a legal assistant.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, that's a good setup. Anything bigger than that starts getting the politics are coming in because it's humanity. As soon as you have a group of people with more than a certain amount, then the politics it becomes hard to manage. It just sounds like an ideal size, and it's all in person office or remote.
All in person.
Yeah, I've been doing remote for the last year, couple years. My team. I'm like, if we're in person, it would be much nicer. Things would probably get done. Like communication would be faster, and like we just feel each other out faster than Slack and stuff like that. But there's pros and cons to both of them. So,
Mhm.
so you got a full on operation. I've known you from doing a lot of business cases, NIWs. I know with the university there, you work with those kind of cases. But the big thing that popped up last time around was you got involved in litigation. In particular, you had like a big lawsuit that happened against Trump administration, and at the time you weren't doing these kind of lawsuits. Maybe you're doing mandamus before, or were you doing lawsuits at all before you did the big one? And we'll talk about what that was about.
I don't know. We weren't. Um, so we sued the Trump administration March of 2018 over the sham waiver process of the travel ban
Hmm.
that the Supreme Court allowed go through. The third iteration of that ban went through December 4th, 2017. And what we saw that very first month was just blanket denials across the board. Anybody who was going to an interview was going to be denied the visa due to the travel ban. And anybody who was waiting on their visa, whether they were in admin processing or the visa was ready to be picked up, they were also being denied visas. So I think by the end of January, the numbers had come out from Senator Van Hollen's office that of 6,000 plus individuals, 0 waivers had been issued in the month of
Wow.
January. And so that was pretty strong evidence that it's a sham process. And then we also had evidence from a counselor officer who agreed to write a declaration on how the travel ban's being implemented. And so um, you kind of had to take that information and do something with it. I think a lot of the bigger organizations had a lot uh, bigger fights that they were working through with kids at the border being separated from their parents.
Yeah.
And so we thought the worst that could happen is you get kicked out of court and you lose your case, but it's worth getting in the ring and doing what you can when you see
Hmm.
something injustice happening around you. You should stand up.
Well, it's not an easy process. First, you got to learn how to do all this stuff and motions and federal court. It's a whole thing you got to learn. Luckily, there's a lot of tools, the immigration space, and colleagues that help. How much does something like that cost? Even like it's just did you have to travel to San Francisco or like well the practical aspect, the not practical, the logistics aspects of it. How complicated was that?
So when we filed the suit, soon after we partnered up with Muslim advocates. And they had brought a lot more litigation cases. So it was a really nice collaborative effort.
Hmm.
And then right after we partnered up with Muslim advocates, there was another lawsuit that had been filed in Seattle by another group of individuals. It was the same lawsuit, very similar lawsuit. So these two cases ended up getting combined. And so throughout the the litigation, we weren't alone. We
Mm,
were fortunate to be in a group, in a team effort, in a group with some of the best attorneys in the country, from big firms to small firms, and I think it was really a joint effort.
mhm. And
As far as the cost, I think when you're working with a team of attorneys, everybody brings what they can to the table.
yeah.
So we had access to paralegals who could site check whatever brief we're filing one day before a due date.
Mhm.
And without that, I don't know if we could have done it without
Yeah.
that support.
So I heard these litigations go into like the millions sometimes. It's like this. It's not like I mean, I probably go to Supreme Court, it's not much, but it's not an inexpensive venture. It's a hardcore kind of thing. So what happened? Like, was there a lot of back and forth challenge? How did the story play out till the end?
They they filed their motion to dismiss, and I think they had one or two motions to dismiss, both of which were denied. And discovery then just dragged out. They drag it out. Now we've got a lot more lawsuits that we're working on, and I think that that lawsuit was really telling on how the State Department and the Department of Justice uh, treat these lawsuits. So I think we were very generous in giving them more time, and then realizing that this is just their mode of operation.
Yeah.
So in our other lawsuits since then, uh, they're moving a lot faster.
Mm. Yeah.
And then we each filed for a motion for summary judgment, and the court sided with us. That was in 2022. But then once you win a suit, there was another 1 or 2 years fight over relief. And what does that mean? Because the State Department and the government was saying that, well, we're only going to give relief to the named plaintiffs, not your class,
Yeah.
as if this 7 years of suit was for like 5 individuals. uh, but that is what they do. I hate to say it, but I'm just going to speak the truth. Their mode of operation is to obstruct, delay, and drag it out.
And by that time, the administration had changed. Is that correct?
That's right.
So the
That's right.
continuity, despite the fact that the administration changed.
Yeah, so the case was sort of closed, and we had to get the judge's attention that even though the travel ban has been lifted, the harm is still there, and the class members are still injured. Um,
There's still probably
but then,
people that are travel ban affected haven't been cleared from the last time. They're just waiting, and just I don't think it's completely cleared up from the last time around.
so we do have 25,000 class members who are right now eligible to get a prioritized visa appointment at the top 20 embassies that predominantly handle Iranian applicants.
Hmm.
Um, and this is open till August 13th, I believe, of this year.
Oh wow.
So if you have viewers, anybody who was denied a visa under the first travel ban and who has not subsequently attended a second interview, they are eligible for this relief. They could go, there's a process that's laid out in details, and we're here for support. Interviews are available every day for these individuals.
It's good, interesting to know. I'm gonna make a note about it, try to publicize it more because there's people who just don't know what's going on, and a lot of them don't hire attorneys. They just hear from a friend or something like that, and they just kind of give up. But it could be like sibling cases take 15, 20 years, and then they're at the finish line, and all of a sudden they just give up or something. And one problem is some people get these notifications from NBC that says or termination for 1 year of no contact. And they just let it go. And I remember having one contact me after they never contacted them, then follow up, and the case got terminated and sent back to USCIS. I was just as a recent one. I'm like, could they reopen it and say you guys confused the hell out of us? But it's hard fighting the NBC once they terminated a case. So I'm not sure if that's possible. So you got into the litigation. What kind of other lawsuits are you filing? Are you doing mandamus delay lawsuits still? Are those kind of cases as well?
We are doing those on an individual basis,
Hmm.
but ideally the dream is to just bring one class action lawsuit on behalf of everyone that's stuck in admin processing.
Yeah.
I think it is winnable, and and the community needs it. It is utterly unfair to families who have complied with all the requirements, submitted their documents, paid their fees, waited their turn in line, attended the interview, and then on top of all of that, to have to file a lawsuit to get to force the government to do their job.
Yeah.
And I think that is needed. That is very much needed right now.
Mhm.
But instead of maybe doing a class action, I think maybe we'll do a couple smaller cases, see what's going on, how are the courts reacting before you bring,
Yeah.
a much larger case where they're going to bring their best.
Hmm.
So you got to be able to bring your best when they're going to bring their best.
Yeah.
We have another lawsuit filed for IRGC conscripts, and that one is a class action lawsuit.
Interesting. IRGC is the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, also known as Sepah for Iran. This is a paramilitary wing, I guess what they call it. They're designated a terrorist organization. So if someone had mandatory conscription when they're 18, government of Iran forced them to join that service for 6 months or a year or two, they're automatically denied immigrant visas for participation, even before this designation happened. And so it's like really messing up, parents and family and husbands and wives, not wives, but I mean, like husbands and wives as well. So it's a really crazy one, that job, because a lot of people like that contact me like, I hated being there, they forced me and I want to be, what do you want me to do? They just put me here. And now it's like 20 years later, like in the 1990s they did it, and they're like 20, 30 years later it's like hitting me like this. Oh man. So it's a disaster for a lot of people.
Mhm. Yep.
Interesting. Uh, So, what, how, when we're recording this in February, already a month into the Trump administration, have you started getting the phone calls that the changes of people being detained, or companies asking I-9 verification now finally thinking about it? What kind of calls are you getting into the new administration?
I think a lot of people who are green card holders want to get that citizenship.
Yeah.
Those guys are afraid. They want to get their citizenship. Those who are abroad want to get their visas, and rightfully so. We all know that there's a travel ban coming. We don't know the specifics of it, whether it's going to be a full ban, a partial ban, whether there will be a waiver process this time around or not. And so everybody's wanting to get those visas. Um, Luckily, fortunately, in Madison, we've had false reports of ICE arrests. We actually have not had ICE in our community.
Hmm.
Um, but it's mostly people wanting to get their visas, get their citizenship, get their green cards, and just get through this process, regardless of nationality. I mean, even if somebody who's German, everybody's scared.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been getting the calls too of all sorts of people. I mean, I get citizens that are worried about losing their citizenship. I'm like, oh, I mean, I haven't studied your case, but very unlikely you get denaturalized. But the denaturalization idea is like really scares the hell out of people, because they're like, I'm secure, I'm here, and they could just yank it far underneath me. I'm like, well, that's not that easy for them to do something like that, and you gotta have a really bad situation. But I think because they can't really enforce these laws, just practically it's just not possible to enforce against the number of employees they have towards the number of people here, that there has to be the shock and awe and the fear and like the false stuff popping up and rumors and stuff. I've had self-deportation calls where people are calling me, I'm just going to leave right now, and I'm like, well, you have a case or this or that, like, no, I don't want to bother, I'm just going to leave or something. So I've been getting like a handful of calls here and there for self-deportation that's happening, and I think that's one of the primary goals, is just to have self-deportation happen.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I could see that. But I try to remind anybody that calls, like, don't panic.
Yeah.
We're going to take it step by step. We're not going to predict the future. You can do what you can with what information you have in front of you, and then we're going to get there. We try to remind people that even if anybody is placed in removal proceedings, that is a 5-year process.
Yeah.
You do not go to the airport the same day and get on a plane. You have rights. There's a due process, and so I think people just don't know that. I think they think removal means I'm on the next flight out. Um,
That's what my
but
experience too. They call, they're like, just gonna pick me up and take me. I'm like, no, you came in lawfully and you overstayed a visa. You're married to U.S. Like, it doesn't work that way. There's removal proceedings, and here in Los Angeles, there's people waiting 8 years to get a hearing. I'm not sure if they're going to deal with this backlog. I mean, some states may have less backlogs, but all the major cities are super backed up. So again, practically, it's not much you could do. I mean, they're going after it, saying people with already have removal orders and stuff like that. Those might be easier to do. But that's a lot of people are going to be stuck in the bureaucracy for many years, and a lot of times they do have relief, and that's the thing. They like we need to talk because we find relief ways that are there. There's programs, people just don't know they exist a lot of times.
Yeah. We also remind our clients and just anybody who calls that they should know their rights. So trying to explain to the community and educate that what's the difference between an administrative warrant and a judicial warrant. It's got to be signed by a judge. If it's from U.S., Department of Homeland Security, you don't necessarily have to comply with that warrant. You don't have to talk to anybody. You have a right to remain silent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that has been very, very helpful. I think people, being able to defend themselves and stand up for themselves is important, and it's making a difference.
Yeah, it is nerve wracking if people in police suits and armor come at you. All of a sudden, you just like, I'll tell you anything you need. You start saying things that aren't even true, just because like you're just freaking out. You might say some crazy stuff. I've seen that happen before too. But there's a procedure. America is built on laws, and we just got to go step by step, and both sides have to do that. Just the way it is. Well, Shabnam, thank you so much for coming on the show again. If you want to reach out, what's the best way they can reach you?
So our website is lotfilegal.com. Info@lotfilegal is also a great way to send an email. We love standing up for the community. We have a coalition of individuals working together on a weekly basis for any iteration of a travel ban that's coming. You're not alone. I just like to let everybody know it's not personal. It is not you specifically that something's going on. The whole world is in chaos right now. And I think what gives me a lot of hope is we have a lot of art in our office around the civil rights movement. So when people have fought against separation and women have fought for their rights, we're going to be getting ours. We're just in line.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks so much, Shabnam, for coming on the show. Stick around for a few minutes afterwards, but I really appreciate it. For those listening to the audio, Shabnam's last name is Lotfi. So if you go on the website, Lotfi or Lotfi, with my last name, Khosravi, I know you got to spell the last name. But thank you so much for coming on, Shabnam.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I'm very appreciative, Shabnam, for coming on the show. Federal litigation is it's a steep learning curve to get at the beginning. It's very stressful, time consuming, especially when you have family and other business stuff you're doing. So God bless her for showing the initiative and doing it. I tried it. I'm like, yeah, I'll spend my extra time doing podcasts rather than doing federal litigation. But through podcasting, we've helped in different ways in the field. So before ending it up, I want to remind everybody that the Toolbox magazine is out, issue number 8. Go to iltbox.com. Click on the link for the magazine. Actually, I forgot to share this at the beginning, but we're continuing doing the AEO recaps, synopsis. That's what I call it, the synopsis. So L1A, EB1C, EB1A, EB2C, NIW. All these cases, that's a gazillion cases you got to read. Well, you don't have to anymore. We're getting it all. We're doing a synopsis of each of the cases that are coming out from the AEO, and it's available for free on our community page on circle.so. Just log in. You read them every week, every month as they come in out. And if there's a particular case that stands out, then you can read the whole thing. But the synopsis has the case name, the job title, the criteria that worked, that didn't, the major explanation that didn't work, all that kind of stuff. So you can really quickly find the case law, and it's not case law, it's AO decision, but case guidance that's going to help you in your practice without having to spend the hundreds of hours I used to do by reading each single one. So definitely check it out. If you want to become a member, you have to be a lawyer, but we have a landing page for it on our website. Go to iltbox.com, click on the community link, and when you click on that, it'll go to, if you haven't registered already, so it goes on that, you fill in your information, let me know your attorney with your bar info, and then I can add you to the community page. And there's Q&A there. There's white labeled content, like sample, like questionnaires and stuff that we have. They can use to put your own logo on there. We just released, if you follow my law firm or Toolbox on Instagram, for example, we take statistics coming from USCIS, Department of State, all that kind of stuff, and then we put our logo on there just so there's data information coming out. But with our logo, we're making it white label so you can do the same and share it and like it's yours. This is free for members of the community page for lawyers. And so as we're doing it, we post them on our pages, and if they're any good and stuff, then we just make it free for everyone else as a lawyer so they can promote the information and their law firm with it. So that's all the good stuff we're doing at Toolbox. So definitely check that out. And if you're interested in the E2 seminar, you want to learn E2 really quickly, NIW, email me at info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com so I can send you registration information for our future seminars coming up in February and March and probably in April as well. I guess that's it, everybody. Have a good one. Bye-bye.